Now that you've heard from David Levy at Amazon Web Services, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you our opening kickoff to the 5G Security Summit. This fireside chat is called 5G to Next G. It will be moderated by Chris Christou, the Vice President for Booz Allen Hamilton. He will interview Dr. Joe Evans, the Principal Director of 5G for the Department of Defense. We hope you enjoy and benefit from this day. And now over to Chris. Chris?
Thank you, Tom, for the introduction. I'm very excited today for us to be hosting for the 5G Security Summit, the opening fireside chat. And of course, our guest of honor for the chat is Dr. Joe Evans, who's been leading a tremendous amount of activity for the 5G within the DoD. So Dr. Evans, the last year, of course, the world has been taken up a lot by pandemic and other issues, but I have to admit that your office and the 5G to Next G program, it's been quite a year with a lot of activities. How do you feel that the program is going thus far? And what are the top lessons learned you think you and your colleagues can apply moving forward in the future?
Thanks, Chris. I think that's a really interesting question, and certainly I think the initiative is progressing very, very nicely. As you know, we have the first tranche of testbed sites underway. Those are moving out quickly. Second tranche of bases in solicitation, along with solicitations for our security work that we call the operate through thrust area, as well as some next G activities. So I think we're really progressing nicely. One of the interesting lessons learned is that a technology like 5G really spans all parts of DoD. And that's because of the nature of the technology. 5G is not just about faster cell phones, it's also about connecting Internet of Things at massive scale, or latency sensitive robotic systems, things like that are basically new application areas for wireless technology. And so what this means for DoD is that 5G then touches many parts of the department, everywhere from the traditional parts of the department, or the services and so forth that do communications and networking, but also parts of the department that will want to use those new applications, things in logistics, training, all those types of new applications. Because of this tie between the 5G technology and the application areas, each of our testbed sites is focused on one or more 5G applications to demonstrate both the new networking technology that comes with 5G, but also the new militarily relevant applications. And so we started this as a collaborative effort across the department, but we really expect that, and it'll need to be a even more collaborative effort as we transition 5G to operational use. At least one of the other lessons learned is just about the challenges of moving quickly, inserting a new technology into the department. And so we've learned a lot about new contracting mechanisms, or maybe not so new contracting mechanisms such as OTAs, other transactional authorities, how to use multiple contracting offices so that we can reach out quickly to industry and not have the bureaucracy slow us down, because the technology is moving so quickly. And we expect to take a lot of those lessons learned so we can move even more quickly as we move into future years of the initiative.
No, that's great. And as I mentioned before, it really has been impressive. And I know, coming from industry, we've been actually very thankful for this effort, because it's really, really spurred those in industry, vendors, carriers, integrators, to really think about this new technology, how it can be used, how it can be deployed, how mature it is, and really getting those good use cases for us to be able to work on. So I think it's not only doing a service for our country and the Defense Department, but really the federal government at large, because I think you guys are really taking the lead. And while it's been impressive, There's a lot of talk about 5G these days, everything from the commercials that we see to policy debates out in the news, to all of this exciting new discussion on new technologies. Given the fact that your office and your colleagues and other stakeholders across the DoD have had the opportunity now to read up on many proposals, I'm sure, and talked to a lot of different companies and done your own research and analysis. What's as well as getting an early feedback from the Tranche 1 activities. What's your general sense of where industry is in the implementation of 5G standards and technologies? Because there's one thing of saying things on paper, doing marketing proposals, all of those, or commercials on TV, but there's quite another when really the rubber hits the road. So what's your general sense there?
So I think it's moving very quickly. So industry certainly busy implementing new 5G technologies based on the 5G standards. We're pleased to be part of that journey. We've seen several examples of early instantiations of the technology. Work with various vendors on initial deployments at several sites. Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. Also have done some work up at Aberdeen Proving Ground with cells on light trucks, 5G cell sites on a light truck. So we've done some experiments there and gotten a sense of how real the systems are. One of the things that we I find interesting though is and you might not realize this, like as you were saying about the TV commercials, 5G really isn't done yet. The standards the full set of standards that define 5G are not yet complete. There's still at least one release that's still a standards release that's out there awaiting completion and implementation. And so we're working with our industry partners to experiment with those latest 5G features that aren't completely standardized or just coming out of the standards process. Things like network slicing and so forth. So we're we're actively supporting several standards initiatives, working with our partners, especially some associated with network security, but also. We're taking some of those experiments that we're doing at the sites, with cutting edge 5G features and our use cases to help inform the standards process, so that we can get those new features like network slicing I mentioned, function virtualization, all those new capabilities into the network as quickly as possible. Is we really think that DoD will derive a lot of benefit from those the next half of the 5G standard. So we're excited to be doing that, and we think it's been a good point in time for DoD to get involved with this, because we are starting to see some of the fruits of the commercial development come to fruition, and at the same time. There's some opportunities for us to make helpful contributions for U.S. and allied partner nations, industry as well.
Yeah, no, awesome, and all great points. And the thing about standards, it's true. There's still more standards to be developed, with both within 3GPP, ORAN, and other places. But of course, there's the writing the standards, and there's the implementation with different vendors having different tweaks based on those understandings. So that kind of leads into the next question, which is, I think it's really, this is why the whole effort is really fascinating, because I think what you'll find is that the awards and then the subsequent deployments and implementations will involve multiple and diverse vendors. So what's your sense of the integration of these different networks and devices? I mean, that does come back to standards, but also just making sure that these different vendors do work together, that you can enforce interoperability. The DoD has a rich heritage in really espousing interoperability, right? For the same reasons as what we're seeing now with 5G, where you want to make sure devices can connect to the network despite what network OEM vendor there is or what carrier it is. And similarly, want two different networks to interoperate, independent of which vendor or carrier it is. So, what are your early observations there, and perhaps maybe even mitigation strategies in the future to ensure that occurs?
Sure. It's a great question. And as I say, interoperability is vital to DoD, and we're really trying to encourage that, throughout the systems that we're prototyping and experimenting with. I should say that our test beds have just gotten underway, as you're saying, and so it's pretty early to fully appreciate all the integration challenges. But some of the initial results are pretty good. We have some of our efforts are underway, and we've demonstrated 5G networks with exemplar applications. For example, I just saw a demo of the test bed for Marine Corps Logistics Base, Albany, Georgia, and some initial capabilities to support logistics on that test bed. Right now, it's just coming out of the lab into deployment, as we speak. But it really provides an opportunity to see that the 5G commercial technology does provide an interoperable platform for applications. One of the advantages of using a commercial 5G technology for DoD applications is that commercial technologies tend to be inherently architected to be multi-vendor. So if you take 4G, the same network that supports Uber, also works for OpenTable or Google or any number of other applications. And so we're hoping that and planning on that many of these technologies will, certainly the application technologies, will be pretty easily deployed on the 5G network. Seams within the 5G network itself, interfaces within the 5G network itself, where interoperability might be needed, is of course more of a challenge. And so one of one of the mitigations that we hope to come to pass there will be the use of and the encouragement of the use of open 5G standards, ORAN, and so forth, wherever possible. We also think that because 5G, a lot of 5G is really software, and many of the vendors are already using standard virtualization technology, virtual machine or container technology, that may help mitigate some of these challenges, just because there are some natural, well-defined software interface points. So as I say, early days, some of that is still speculation, but we do think that because these are commercial technologies, there's an inherent bias towards interoperability.
Yeah, no, definitely. Great point. Of course, security is a big focus of this event, and and of course, top of mind for a lot of people in the deployment of 5G involves security. A big part of it is the expansion of the attack vector with a lot of different types of devices, as well as that disaggregation in the RAN, that we're going to see between the software and then the hardware that processes the signals. So could you expand perhaps on how security standards are evolving within the DoD, perhaps future guidance that could be coming out, and then how that might get implemented and incorporated into future 5G to next G program activities?
Yeah, absolutely important and great question. We're really working across the 5G initiative to understand and develop, where necessary, security standards that meet DoD needs. Hopefully, we can use as much of the commercial security work as possible, but of course, there will be unique DoD needs that we'll need to address. we're working closely with our colleagues in DoD CIO and other government agencies to implement supply chain risk management principles, starting in our test beds. So, as we deploy at the DoD sites, we're reviewing the entire supply chain for our prototype networks, entire bills of materials, hardware and software, so that we understand the provenance of all of the hardware and software for each system at the site. And really, this is kind of a great opportunity, really, to test out these supply chain risk management principles in real deployments. Essentially, get to the step of we have these approaches, we have these processes laid out. Let's actually try them at these prototype sites and enhance those processes where necessary. One of the things that we've been able to do is, we've made the point that we have many new types of capabilities and technologies coming with 5G. Not all of the old standards will fit the new model, and so we're going to have to adapt as we move forward. And then finally, we also understand that DoD may have to operate overseas over untrusted networks, and so we also have studies and exploratory efforts, and soon to start major efforts on analyzing vulnerabilities, assessing risk, and developing security safeguards and mitigation. So for a pretty broad-ranging effort in security.
Great. Sounds really fascinating. Of course, I think it'll just continue to evolve, especially as those new standards come out and new guidelines get developed across the government, as well as by those standards committees. As I mentioned, you guys are doing a great job in leading the prototype and OTA activities. And I think industry did observe, and even more broadly, that your office, I believe, is working with NTIA for future challenges programs. Could you give maybe a brief description of that and how you might see the results of those challenges being implemented in future programs that you or your colleagues might be leading?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we're really excited about this new effort, and we're calling the Open 5G Challenge. So I should start by saying what we mean by Open 5G. And so we really mean by Open 5G, open interfaces, well-defined interfaces, not necessarily open source. Open source is fine, but we believe that the marketplace should make that decision, not us. So it's really, we're talking about open interfaces. Really, we're focused on how well vendors implement the standards so that we get all those new capabilities that we were just talking about. So the Open 5G Challenge will aim to have complete 5G protocol stacks. So there are many efforts out there with bits and pieces of open 5G solutions, but maybe not an entire type of capability that the DoD would want to use. We want to make sure it's mature, so just stable. That's obviously necessary. And then finally, interoperable. We want to be able to take pieces of systems from different vendors and make them interoperable along these interfaces. And that's really important for DoD. Not just from the point of view of vendor diversity, which is important, but also from the point of view of being able to perhaps customize systems in the future. But if they're modular, we don't have to customize every little bit. We can use what's what works where it works. So if those challenges are successful, could lead to more requirements for open architectures and implementations, and maybe just as importantly, form the foundation for what would be the next G's. Improving U.S. competitiveness in the next G's, 6G and 7G and beyond, as well as provide capability for future DoD systems.
Great. So just, you had touched on standards development before, and I think that, there's been a lot of discussion, in more broadly about how the United States needs to get a handle more on being able to participate in the standards bodies and having more influence there. Do you foresee the DoD and maybe the U.S. government at large playing a more significant role in entities such as 3GPP, ORAN, ADIS, and other standards bodies like that?
Um, uh, yeah, yes, in a way. And so I think, the point to make is that entities, whether it's 3GPP or ADIS or ORAN, some of these industry groups, they're really industry centric and technology centric. And, they're about standards that are built and advocated for by technologists within member companies. So very, very focused on that. We're certainly engaging in the standards process, but really what we're trying to do is encourage U.S. and partner nation companies to become more engaged with those standards entities, and not just the traditional folks that necessarily go to these standards bodies, but smaller companies, startups, companies coming out of academic labs. Things like that, places like that don't traditionally participate in these big standards efforts. And we want to make sure that we knock down any barriers that we're putting in the way. So if companies need support from DoD to make that happen, we're very happy to entertain that. We're also interested in understanding whether there are other barriers that are preventing them from working together on standards. So really, that becomes a whole of government type of effort, and we're certainly doing what we can, but also working with our interagency partners.
Awesome. Yeah. No, and a lot of the efforts that are going on in the standards bodies are very exciting, and I think they're really going to push the ball forward. So it'll be exciting to see those new entrants into those standards bodies to help influence where things go, especially with some of the innovative technologies they're developing. Just finally, given the prototyping efforts that are active now, how do you see, a path to production, as we might call it, and more specifically, there are a lot of different mission systems out there, tactical networks and user devices. How do these 5G capabilities get integrated into these production systems, and these end user device and application systems get updated to be able to leverage this key new technology? Because I think it could bring a lot of utility out for future missions.
That's a good question, and we've been working with our partners in the services to identify transitions for each of the prototyping efforts. Back when we started this, the representatives from the services were participants in deciding what the use cases would be, what the experiments would be, and where those would be performed. And so, I think they started with an idea of where these technologies would live within each of the services and their acquisition cultures. And certainly been working also closely with DoD CIO and partners at DISA and so forth to make sure that these technologies will transition. And the services and folks from these other agencies have been participating in the solicitation selection process all along. So they're really partners, close partners in this. For the prototyping efforts, we are looking at a range of different technologies. In some cases, you could just use 5G. Smart warehouse, you can really just deploy a 5G network with the right capabilities, and it's the commercial type of technology, and off you go. You just use it for your logistics or smart warehouse types of things. In other cases, if you want to use it further forward in the battle space, that's where we have to start thinking about modular systems. Can we use part of 5G? Maybe we can't use part of 5G, or not some features in particular environments. And so at this point, we're just starting some prototyping efforts to look at some of those trade-offs and understand new concepts of operation, and how we might then inject that technology. If you take, for example, our upcoming experiment with Camp Pendleton, we're looking at 5G fairly forward in the battle space, and maybe interconnecting sensors as well as command elements in tactical environments. And so we think it's important to understand the new technology through our experiments, and then work on new architectures as well as those new concepts of operation that then can transition to programs of record. And as I said earlier, this could be programs of record in some cases that are the traditional networking communications folks. In some cases, it may be more applications-oriented organizations such as logistics and training organizations. So quite a wide range of organizations, but in the end, we believe that these will be much more capable systems for the U.S. military.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, listen, I think we're at the end of time here. I want to very much thank you for participating today. This has been an honor to host you as part of this fireside chat. I know it's June, so we don't necessarily have a fireside by us, but it's been awesome nonetheless. So thank you very much. This has been very informative, very, very insightful, and best of luck in the future with all of your endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you. Very much appreciate it.